Yes. Hello everyone. Yesterday I had discussion on general essay paper. Today I am going to discuss on GS paper 1. Recently UPSC had conducted the mains examination in which general studies one paper I am going to discuss with synopsis. The synopsis of yesterday's essay paper which I explained will be available in our Telegram channel. Our Telegram channel is under the description, and today's synopsis of GS paper 1 is also will be available in the Telegram channel as well as in our website. So the first question is with respect to the rock cut architecture represents one of the most important sources of our knowledge of early Indian art and history. Discuss. It is asking about art and culture, mainly with respect to rock art architecture. Rock art architecture. So there are sites like Bhimbedka, Aihole, Badami, Bagh, Elephanta caves, etc. are the famous examples for this rock cut architecture. Rock cut architecture. So first you have to explain what is rock cut architecture, then some examples of our rock cut architectures, and Kailasanath temple at Ellora is also one of the best example for rock cut architecture, and rock cut architecture in Mauryan empires. So why? Because this is 10 marker, you have to mention this in point wise. Remember, the best answer will be writing in point wise for the 10 marker. This is a 10 marker question. Second question. Pala period is the most significant phase in the history of Buddhism, art and architecture. Pala period. The Buddhism was flourishing in this Pala period. The distinctive achievements of Palas are seen in the arts and architecture, sculpture, terracotta, painting and wall painting. Right contribution of Gopala. Gopala is one of the famous personality of the Pala dynasty. So what is his contributions and how the Buddhism was in the peak? How the Buddhism was peak in this particular Pala period you have to mention. Large number of manuscripts on palm leaf relating to the Buddhist themes were written and illustrated with the images of Buddhist deities. So the Pala is very famous for the Buddhism. So because of which what are palm leaf writings as well as palm leaf writings and various art and architecture which are famous. Dharmapala is one of the person, and as well as more points you have to explain with respect to Pala rulers who were been studying with respect to Buddhism, who were been written with respect to Buddhism. Third question. Evaluate the policies of Lord Curzon from modern India. He is a person responsible for partition of Bengal in 1905. He is a person who is responsible for divide and rule. He is a person very derogatorily he used to speak about the Indians. Because of that thought process, because of such policies, the Indian nationalism had increased multifold. The Indian gods aggrieved because of the policies of the British. The question is evaluate the policies of Lord Curzon and their long-term implications on the national movement. So because of divide and rule, because of negative attitudes and derogatory speakings with respect to Indian population, so the nationalism had evolved and reached the zenith. So Lord Curzon's policy is also one of the important point. I gave you clear descriptions what all he did. This will be the best answer for your best points for your answer. Remember, this is only for 10 marker. Next, discuss the geophysical characteristics of Circum-Pacific zone. Circum-Pacific zone, which is nothing but ring of fire in the Pacific Ocean. So this diagram is mandatory. You have to draw this diagram. This map should be in your answer. So this is about Circum-Pacific zone. 90% seismic activity, very active seismic activity will be happening here. 90% of all earthquakes, 75% of all active volcanoes. Geophysical characteristics, horseshoe shaped on the edges of the Pacific Ocean from the southern tip of South America along the west coast of North America. So there is a subduction where the denser layer is going inside the lighter layers. So because of which the earthquakes, volcanoes are occurring in this particular region. So this map is very, very important with respect to ring of fire or Circum-Pacific zone. Next question. The process of desertification. Listen the question properly. The process of desertification means desert. It is becoming desert. The process of desertification does not have climate boundaries. Just with examples. So if this is the climate boundary of desert, Thar desert, that means the deserts should present there only. Is it true? No. We have in Vidarbha region, in northern Telangana region, In Anantapur region of Andhra Pradesh, in Rayalaseema region of Andhra Pradesh, we are seeing the desertification which is happening. So the desertification has come out of the climate boundaries. The desertification has come out of the climate boundaries. Other regions are also getting affected because of the desertification. Why? Man-made reasons. No proper rainwater harvesting, deforestation. These are some of the major reasons which are responsible for, yes. Give the definition of desertification which is given by UN. Explain man-made desertifications with example. Human activities that contribute to desertifications include expansion, intensive use of agricultural lands, irrigation, ruthless irrigation practices. Non-religious irrigation practices are also responsible for desertification. And with overexploitation, salinization, loss of productivity, increased resilience to climatic variations. These all factors are responsible for desertification. So what I want to tell you here is, the process of desertification is crossing its boundary. Now it is not limited to the climatic boundaries. In other places which is not part of its biome, also getting desertification. Why? Man-made reasons, salinization, exploitation, ruthless use of water, irrigation facilities. These all are resulting deforestation, resulting in desertification. Every year one question will be there on desertification. Yes. How will the melting of Himalayan glaciers have far-reaching impact on the water resources of India? Yes. Glacial retreat, the melting of Himalayas is having higher impact on the low-lying areas. Flooding is happening because of Himalayan mountains. Because of the melting of the Himalayan mountains, the cold breeze which is coming from the Central Asia, now they are entering into the northern parts of India. So this melting of Himalayan mountains is having higher impact on Indian mainland. The effects of climatic changes on glacier dynamics will affect both the supply and demand for water in the Himalayan region, and these changes will in turn affect the vulnerability of key populations to freshwater problems. Glacial retreat is only one factor that contributes to changes in the hydrological cycle. So what I want to tell you that this, you have to draw one diagram. How the glacial melting in Himalayan regions is affecting the mainstream India. That is what the question is about. Pure geography, Indian geography point of view. Seventh question. Account for the present location of iron and steel industries away from the source of raw material. Yes. This is a very important point. See here. Exhausting of raw materials is also a dominant factor nowadays. Earlier, wherever the raw materials are there the iron and steel industries established, like Jharkhand region, Dhanbad region, iron and steel industries came, Visakhapatnam region. But here, exhausting of raw materials is also a dominant factor responsible for location of iron and steel industries. Nowadays, industrial scrap is using for manufacturing iron and steel. So where there is no availability of raw material also, we can have the establishment of iron and steel industry, because we can use the industrial scrap for iron and steel, for manufacturing iron and steel. The Vijayanagara steel plant, which is located in Hospet, in Durgapur, Billai, Bokaro. But one thing, Uttar Pradesh, Haryana, Punjab, Rajasthan and Gujarat, we cannot see iron and steel because of absence of raw material. But industrial scrap is there. Because of the availability of industrial scrap, there is iron and steel industries are coming. So irrespective of the raw material availability, there is iron and steel industries are coming up. Very quickly, 10 marker question. Yes, mention the site names. Where there is iron and steel industries came, this industrial scrap is also one of the factors responsible for establishment of, yes. Very important question. Has caste lost its relevance in understanding the multicultural Indian society? Yes. Whether caste lost its relevance? No. Caste is playing its own role. The Indian society is equivalent to Hindu social system. So this caste has been not lost because of the multicultural society. Now the caste is also present in Muslim community, Islam community in the form of Ashrafs, Ajlaf communities, Paniyans, Parava communities. So the caste has penetrated into the multicultural society. Earlier in pre-independence times, the caste was only social context, but now in the post-independence times, the caste is not only social context, political context, economical context and cultural context as well. So in multicultural society also, caste did not lost its relevance. In spite, it also entered into the other cultures. In spite, it also entered into the other religions also. That is what the question is all about. So I divided into pre, I divided into post with some examples. See, caste in Hinduism penetrated in Islam and Christianity. Right, the current scenario of caste and some case studies. Yes. Now the caste has been crossed the border also. Recently, in a software company in California was been recruiting based upon their caste name as a tail to their original name, to their first name. So caste has crossed the border and it is also present in foreign countries. So caste is not going to lose its relevance. COVID-19 pandemic accelerated class inequalities, yes, and poverty in India. It increases the poverty. Class inequalities increased. Migrant worker problem increased like anything, which pushed them into poverty. These evidences you have to put. PLF report. What is this PLF report is telling? What is this OECD is telling? How because of COVID-19, how they impacted? Expected question. This was expected question. Do you agree that regionalism in India appears to be a consequence of rising cultural assertiveness? Yes. Regionalism. We want Khalistan. We are Sikh identity. We are Sikh culture. We want greater Nagaland. We are Naga culture people. We are Naga people. So regionalism is leading to cultural assertiveness. Our culture is different. Your culture is different. We are not part of the mainstream culture. Hence we want to come out of this culture subjugation. That is what the question about. First, maintain, right, what is regionalism? What are the factors for rising of cultural assertiveness? Substantiate with examples like Greater Nagaland and Khalistan. What is regionalism you have to mention? Yes, because of the regionalism, the cultural assertiveness is there. The cultural assertiveness is there. Sikh culture, Naga culture, Gorkha culture in Gorkha land. Eleventh question, 15 marker begins from now. 15 into 10, elaborate. 3 pages you have to write. Indian philosophy and tradition played a significant role. Indian philosophy and tradition played a significant role in conceiving and shaping the monuments and their art in India. Amaravati, Mathura. You have to mention about this. Amaravati, Mathura. Inscriptions of Maurya, Gupta, Indian art, Bhimbedka, rock cut architecture, Indus Valley people worshipped nature. This is the philosophy. Bhimbedka caves, hunting and gathering. This is one of the philosophy. If you go deeper south, Ravi Verma is a person who is famous for painting. His drawings were been mentioning about the religious things. This were the philosophies. All these points you have to cover. Summary. Persian literature, very tough question according to me. This is very hard question. Persian literary sources of medieval India, according to syllabus, medieval India and ancient India should not be there, but this is art and culture medieval India. Persian literary sources of medieval India reflect the spirit of the age. Students are thinking that the paper is easy. No. For this answer, you need to know the factual information. You have to write the words like Tahir Kavandi from Central Asia, Abul Fahid Farigi, Nadir Samarkandi. These are the words which should reflect for this answer. Babar himself was a poet and a great historian. Why? Because medieval India, according to T. Lane Pole, in Persian, the language of culture, the Latin of Central Asia. He was an accomplished poet and his native Turkey, he was master of a pure and unaffected style like in prose and verse. Who developed it? Aurangzeb developed this. Nizam of Hyderabad also were famous for Persian literature. That also you have to mention. This factual information, very important. Without the factual information, the answer is not correct. Remember. Since the decade of 1920s, the national movement acquired various ideological stands and thereby expanded its social basis. Partition of Bengal, emergence of new parties, moderate philosophy, extremist philosophy. Extremist philosophy was violence, moderate philosophy was pray, petition and protest. Here came a new ideology, Gandhian philosophy, Gandhian ideology. What is Gandhian ideology? Bose ideology led the movement in different way. Bose role in national movement. Question is what? Since 1920s, the national movement acquired various ideological strands. Extremist ideology, moderate ideology, Gandhian ideology, Bose ideology, which is coterminous with socialism, socialist philosophy, socialist ideology, and thereby expanding its social base, means people base, getting the support of the people. So you have to write about the extremists, you have to write about the moderates, you have to write about the Gandhian ideology, you have to write about the Bose ideology, which is been common with, which is in synchronization with socialist ideology in national movement. Interlinking of revivers, it is the same word is also used in the question paper, means reverse. Can provide viable solutions to the multi-dimensional interrelated problems of droughts, floods and interrupted navigation, critically examine. Kane-Betwa interlinking of rivers, the best example. Kane-Betwa interlinking of rivers. Interlinking of river is a way of transfer of water from surplus to deficient areas, mainly from flooded areas to drought affected areas, from surplus to deficient areas. So it's good only, but how? What is the mechanism? Whether we are going to acquire the forest areas. Panna Tiger Reserve is coming under this Kane-Betwa interlinking of rivers. Whether it is judiciable, whether environmental impact assessment is going to be done, whether there is any impact on environment, whether tribal displacement is happening, whether tribal acquisition will be happening. So there is a need for proper study, environmental impact assessment, culture impact assessment, social impact assessment need to be done. Account for the huge flooding current affairs, Hyderabad and Pune. Why? Because of disaster preparedness plan is absent. Flood hotspot mapping at local and regional scale should be present. Management and regulation of riparian zones. River flood modeling to prepare for incidences like reservoir breach. These are the things which are required to stop this flooding in urban areas. Last year it was Chennai, this year it is Hyderabad and Pune, and Hyderabad was worst affected. Total old city came under the floods. Preparedness, disaster preparedness plan, flood hotspot mapping, and municipal corporation should be ready. India has immense potential of solar energy through their regional variations in its development. Write about International Solar Alliance, which is a baby child of Narendra Modi. The tropical countries coming under the solar production. Solar power India is fast developing. The country's solar installed capacity is 35.12 of 30th June. India has the lowest capital cost per megawatt globally of installing solar power plants. We had a target of 20 gigawatts by 2022 and a national solar mission. So how rooftop solar model we are having, and how we are integrating with the tropical countries for the sake of production of solar power, factual points you have to mention. These all points should be there in your answer. Examine the status of forest resources of India and the resultant impact on climate change. India Forest Survey should be there. 2019 survey should be there, and absence deforestation, how it is impacting the climate change also should be there. India is now ranked third in the world for annual net gain in terms of forest area. Forest area is increasing. That is a good sign. Forest Report 2019 released by the Union Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change report that the India has achieved an increase of 24% its total forest. That's a very good sign. Role of forest in climate change. Yes, various roles will be there. As a carbon credit, as a carbon sink, sensitivity to changing climate, in production of oxygen, in consumption of carbon. Yes. Is diversity and pluralism in India under threat due to globalization? Is diversity and pluralism? Yes. Now English became unilateral. English became unilateral now. McDonaldization, we have multiple cuisines, but everywhere if we go, we are seeing McDonaldization or McDonald shops or Pizza Huts. Uniformity is becoming. The diversity, the variations, the plurality is getting decreased. WTO is making a single trade. There are global institutions now, global political institutions. Education has become a commodity now. So yes, because of globalization, yes, there is a threat to pluralism, there is a threat to diversity, true. Customs and traditions suppress reason, leading to obscurantism. Obscurantism means which stop us from questioning. Obscurantism means the practice or policy of deliberately making something difficult to understand, especially in order to stop people from knowing ideas, facts. For example, customs and traditions are blindly followed and there is no reason why they are following. Basically, customs and tradition based on myths and rituals. We cannot question it. For example, practicing of sati. There is no reason to practice sati, and nowhere in the Vedas mentioned about women should jump into the funeral and die after husband's death. But we are following. We used to follow it. Now dowry system is that. Patriarchy is that. Male dominance is that. Obscurantism because of the customs and traditions. Last question. How have digital initiatives in India contributed to the functioning of the education system in the country? Digitalization has shown good impact on education system, mainly in COVID times. Online education. Write the example of Kerala, Namat Basai, in tribal areas. The online education, the digitalization of government schools. Government digital initiatives in COVID times had completely changed the view on Indian education. Conducting classes in Doordarshan and introducing apps, etc. are the best example. National Mission on Education through ICT, Swayam Siddha, Prabha, National Digital Literacy Library, E-Yantra, virtual labs, etc. etc. Yes. These are all the steps for the sake of promoting digitalization, and we have been successful in the COVID times in providing the education to the marginalized and all the sections of the people, except a few exceptions. So GS1, tough paper only, except some questions. Most of the questions were tough, but you need to have the content. Then you will get the maximum marks. By seeing the question, it seems to be easy, but it is not easy. You have to have some information. Like Persian literary, obscurantism. Some students, they don't know the meaning of obscurantism, Finish. 15 marker question. We need to know the meanings of some technical words also. So tomorrow I will come up with GS2 paper discussion. Thank you. All the best.